We did it, guys. I just said we, like we did it. When I said we, I meant me. I did it. I have finished the 24 books that I want to read in 2024. So let's just get straight into this video where I discuss all of the books that I read, my thoughts, very brief thoughts actually, because this will be a long video otherwise, and when I rated them and whether or not I stand by that rating, because I probably won't. But let's just get straight into this novel and I'm out of breath. First of all, let's move these books out of my way. I'm not going to talk about these books in the order that I read them, purely because I straight up just don't remember what order I read them in. We can go in order because I have the order that I read them in. It's going to be chaotic, but I mean, I'm kind of here for it. So the first book that I picked up off this challenge was If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This was the Cinderella retelling, reimagining, where they basically take the classic Disney story and they give it a modern version, and it focuses on our main character, Cindy. She's a plus size shoe designer. Her stepmother runs a bachelor style show called Before Midnight. They need some extra girls to appear on the show. Cindy asked to go on the show and she becomes an overnight sensation. Everybody loves her because she's one of like the first plus size people on the show, and it was fantastic. I loved everything about this book. I had no complaints. I thought it was perfect. It was my first 5-star of the year. It was also the first book that I read this year. I maintain my 5 stars. I thought it was a brilliant book. And then the second book that I picked up, which was also in January, I'm not going to remember what month I read these in, it's just because I have some vague idea, was The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. She was a new author that I discovered this year. I literally went and read every single book that she has because I adored this book. We focus on our main character, Stella. She has Asperger's. She's obsessed with maths. She doesn't care about relationships and love. Her parents basically spring it on her that they would love to have some grandchildren. They want her to kind of get in a relationship, get married, have kids. She freaks out, hires herself an escort. I believe it's Michael, yes. And she basically just wants him to teach her how to be in a relationship, all things sex, romance, all of that, and they end up having feelings for one another, and it was super cute, super adorable. I also gave it 5 stars, and I'm maintaining my 5 stars. I thought it was brilliant. And then the third book that I picked up was The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. It was the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series. I kind of challenged myself that I want to read one Rick Riordan book series per year. I read the Percy Jackson series, not last year, but the year before. Immediately after finishing like the first 2 books, I ran out and purchased every single Rick Riordan series that there was in the Percy Jackson world. And then I proceeded to not pick up a single book. And so I had like 4 unread book series by this guy just sitting on my shelf, and I didn't pick one up last year. So I told myself I had to read one of his book series a year, and the next one that I needed to pick up was The Heroes of Olympus. We basically returned back to Camp Half-Blood. We have a whole new group of demigods, but we also have our favorites coming back, so Percy and Annabeth, and we discovered that there's a whole new prophecy, there's this whole new camp, and honestly, it was just a good time. I had a great time with it. That's a bit of a lie, not a great time. I was glad to be back. I did end up rating it 3 stars. Didn't enjoy it as much as the Percy Jackson series, but I still thought it was a really good time. I enjoyed being back in this world. My one big complaint is that all of the books are so thick, not much seems to happen. It's just a lot of traveling and going around and not much went on. But overall, I am glad that I finally picked this series up. Oh, I'm going to talk about the next 3 books together just because they're part of a series. So books 4, 5, and 6, what order are they meant to go in this order? Is the Little Bridge Island book series by Meg Cabot. The first book being No Judgments, the sequel being No Offense, and then No Words. These books are interconnected standalones. They all feature on the Little Bridge Island, and then the characters in this one don't make an appearance, but the characters in this book do come into the third book, No Words. Overall, I rated all of these books 3.5 stars. This was a little bit of a disappointing book series for me. I thought I was going to enjoy it a lot more than I did. I absolutely hated the characters in this first book. My biggest complaint is that it seemed to be the premise didn't match what actually happened in the books, and I found that incredibly frustrating because I was going into the book thinking that this is what happens, and it was the complete and utter opposite. Like, this one focused on a hurricane. We were told that she was going to help people reunite with their pets that they had abandoned when they left the town from said hurricane, and it turns out that the entire plot of the book was just leading up to the hurricane, and then there was a couple chapters on the missing animals. It was so misleading. I did not enjoy it. It was my least favorite. No offense, was probably the weirdest out of the three. But we focus on a librarian and a police officer who's related to the male lead in the first book. They find a baby in a library, but the whole premise was that they had to find out who the parents were. They found out who the parents were in like 30 seconds. It wasn't difficult. They knew within a week. Then there was this other plot line about rich, spoiled children living in people's abandoned homes. I hated the whole thing. And then this book made the whole series kind of worthwhile, in my opinion, because we focused on authors. The librarian from this book is running like a book festival, and she invites all these authors to come to town, and there's a little bit of like a rivalry between two of the authors. Overall, happy I read it because it's been sitting on my shelf for way too long, but I was hoping to enjoy them a bit more. Book 7 was also the first book in a series, which was Legend by Mary Lou. It is the first book in the Legend series by her. Also rated at 3 stars. This is a book series that I've wanted to read for like, I want to say 10 years, but I don't know if that's accurate. I didn't enjoy them very much. My main complaint is that the different perspective for the characters, they changed font, and that did my head. And the second I saw that, I was noped out of this book series. I do think that if I had picked them up 10 years ago, I probably would have enjoyed them. Because I'm 31, I just feel like I'm way too old for this book series and the stuff that it's going over. I feel like I've read this book before, and I feel like I've read books that have done this concept better. So it's the whole dystopian world, government thing. Like, just read The Hunger Games. I think it's the better one out of the two. But yeah, overall, didn't really enjoy this book series, and it's made me learn that Mary Lou is not an author for me. And then book 8 that I picked up was You Have a Match by Emma Lord. I rated this one 3.5 stars. I haven't actually stated my ratings. You know what? I think I would stick to the 3 stars. Probably maybe drop it down to 3. This one was an odd book. We focus on a girl whose parents had her when she was quite young. She ends up doing a DNA test because her best mate's adopted, and she does it to support him. She ends up discovering that she has a biological sister. So mum and dad are these girls' parents, who is like a year and a bit older than her, that she has absolutely no idea about. They end up talking, go to a camp and meeting up and discovering how her adoption happened, what went ahead, the secret that their parents have been keeping from them. It was a cool concept. I just didn't really like the way it was executed. I just also don't think I'm not really a huge fan of the way that Emma Lord writes, and so that kind of let me down a little bit. But I do think I might knock it like 3.5 stars. I'm not too mad about, because my current ratings, I think that would work, but I'm gonna rejig my ratings at some point. Book 9. We then went back into the world of the Heroes of Olympus and picked up the sequel, The Son of Neptune, also by Rick Riordan. I also rated this one 3 stars. This one, we ended up finding Percy, because Percy was missing in the first book. We find Percy, whole new prophecy. I don't think I'm going to say too much about these. Don't really remember a whole lot about it, except that I do believe the two camps are going to meet at the end of this one. But yeah, it was just, it was a bit of a nothing book. I think it was a filler, to be honest. Book 10. Oh, yes, this one. That was Fire with Fire by Destiny Saria. I rated this one 3 stars. It was disappointing, guys. I thought this was going to be a really cool dragon book that I could use for the Long Live song, because the prompt was a fantasy novel with dragons. This wasn't really a fantasy novel. It was more like a weird modern day novel with dragons and people they're hunting the dragons. And I just feel like that it could have been better executed. I could probably drop this down to 2.5 stars. I just think it could have been better. The main character, Danny, has a sister, Eden, and I just didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a good time for me. If you want to know more about it, I'm pretty sure I read this one in March, so go and check out my reading wrap up for my more in-depth thoughts. But honestly, this book just annoyed me more than anything. Book 11 was Time of Our Lives by Emily Wibley and Austin Siegemund Brocker. I really wanted to this year read my back catalogue of this author, these two authors, because I had like 3 of their books sitting on my TBR cart. This is probably the better one out of the 3 that I did read this year. I rated it 4 stars. Wow, actually, I rated that quite high, didn't I? But we basically focused on 2 main characters, Fitz and Juniper. They're both finishing up high school and looking to go to college, and they're basically going on a college tour, but they're going on their college tour for very different reasons. Juniper is going on it because she's trying to go to a college as far away as possible from her family because there's too many of them and they're driving her bonkers. Whereas Fitz is being forced to go on this college tour because his mother has just been diagnosed with early onset dementia. She wants him to go and have the college experience. He's wanting to stay at home and look after her. And honest to God, I think I cried. Like, just trying to discuss the book has made me almost cry on multiple occasions, just because the stuff with dementia I can really relate to. Most of my grandparents have experienced dementia, so I've seen firsthand the impact it can have on people, and you know, to be someone who's lived with seeing that happen. Not a really pleasant experience, but I do think that the authors did it justice. I maintain my 4 stars. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna cry. So we're gonna move on. And then book 12 was the sequel to the Legend book, which was Prodigy by Mary Lou. Basically just carried on with, sorry, June and Day. I never said the main characters' names. Once again, rated at 3 stars. Feel like I could probably drop the whole series down to 2.5 stars if I'm being honest. It just really wasn't for me. I didn't explain this, but like, Day's a criminal. June is like a soldier in their military, but she's like a prodigy because she's really excelled through everything. Her brother, who was high up in the military, ends up getting killed in the first book. Day has been implicated as the murderer. Turns out it wasn't him, so she saves him at the end of that book, and then this one's them on the run, essentially. Once again, not a huge fan, but you know, we read it. Yeah, so then the 13th book that I picked up was the 3rd and final book in the Legend series, which was Champion by Mary Lou. This just continued on the story. We finally got a resolution to everything going on. It was the best book in the series, but I don't think it was worth reading the first 2 books to get to it. Did rate it 3 stars. Like I said, probably 2.5 stars is a better rating. Mary Lou, just not an author for me. Probably would have loved this 10 years ago, but also I do think that there are better books that do this kind of topic out there, and that's just my opinion. And then book 14 was Always Never Yours by Emily Wibley and Austin Siegmund Brocker. This is the book about our main character Megan, where essentially she'll date a guy, they'll break up, they haven't been together very long, and then he goes and meets the love of his life after her. First of all, you're in high school. That's not logistically possible. It's not realistic. It doesn't happen in life. Not for every single bloke you've ever dated. This book was just odd. I rated it, where is it? 3 stars. Yeah, could drop it down to 2.5 maybe. I didn't like it. She has her best friend who is dating one of the guys that she just broke up with. She also wants to be like a playwright, but for her to get into the college or the program that she wants to get into, she has to have some acting experience. So she auditions for her school's play of Romeo and Juliet. She just wants to be cast as like the old nurse or something, but ends up getting cast as Juliet alongside her ex-boyfriend who's currently dating her best friend. First of all, I do not like that the best friend was dating her ex-boyfriend. Are you actually a best friend? Because like, he actually cheated on her with the best friend. So the best friend sucked. I'm just gonna come out and say it. Didn't really like her. I didn't like the whole book. Like, I'm sure it was probably meant to be some commentary around not slut shaming, but it was hard to take it seriously when they're like 16, 17 years old. I'm like, yeah, sure, babes. You've really, he's really met the love of his life there. By the end of the book, half of the blokes had broken up with the love of their life. So it was just not good. I did not have a good time with it. And then book 15, where are you? Was the 3rd book in the Heroes of Olympus series, which was The Mark of Athena. I feel like this may have been my favorite one out of the 5. Because this one focused more on Annabeth, and I think Annabeth is a great character. Basically have to go on in this book. From memory, I feel like they may have split up a little bit, but Annabeth, her mother, has this like mark, and it's the Mark of Athena. Sorry, there's like, I explained that so bad, but there's no good way to explain it. And basically she has to go and find this lost thing that symbolizes her mother, but nobody actually knows what it is. Turns out it's just a statue of Athena. It was stolen by the Romans and they've been hiding it, and in order for the Rome and Greek camps to get along, they have to restore the statue of Athena back to the Greek camp. And we basically just go looking for it. There's a creepy spider. It was cool. I enjoyed it, but once again, way too thick and not a lot happened. Also 3 stars. And then book 16 was the 4th book in the Heroes of Olympus, which was House of Hades. This was such a nothing story. Most of the book was them trying to get through Hades because they fell into hell at the end of the 3rd book. I won't tell you who, but the whole book was just one of the groups of the demigods trying to get to one side of the gates of hell on earth, and then the other group of the demigods who were in hell were just trying to get through hell to get to the gates of hell on hell's side so they could go back to earth and open it and reunite one another. And it was, this is the definition of a filler book. I think I said that about the second one, but no, this one did nothing. It was frustrating. Nothing happened. I felt like it was like 500 pages of hell. I still rated it 3 stars, and apparently I couldn't have hated it that much, because immediately after finishing the 4th book, my brain went, yeah, let's jump into the 5th and final book, which was The Blood of Olympus. Still rated it 3 stars. I do think I ended up reading a part of the audiobook because I got like 50 pages in and went, oh my god, I've made such a bad decision going back to back fantasy novels, and I had slight regrets. I still rated it 3 stars. Honestly, I think it was a good conclusion. I'm happy with it. I do have questions that I hope are answered in the next series, but overall, I am glad that I returned back to the Greek gods Percy Jackson world. It was really cool to see some of the old favorite characters come back, but also find some new characters, and I did have a good time with it. Book 18 was King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. I was a little bit disappointed in this book. I did end up rating it 3.5 stars. Sorry. No, this is like 2.5 stars. This book came across like with a really good, strong premise where we have our main character Isolde. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. If it's wrong, my bad. She ends up becoming like having an arranged marriage, but it's very short term. It's like her father agrees to surrender to the vampire king, Adrian, and he's like, as part of your surrender, I want to marry your daughter. And so she agrees to it, and she's basically agreed to it because she's going to try and kill him. A human trying to kill a vampire who's hundreds of years old. Honey, you ain't gonna do nothing he's not already seen or survived before. And everyone in her kingdom is just so offended by her having sex with him on her wedding night because she didn't kill him. And this book was ridiculous. It was obvious to guess. I feel like there were plot holes, and I just didn't have a good time with it. And honestly, 2.5, 3 stars is what I should have rated it. It was not that good. And then book 19 was the 3rd and final book that I had to read by Emily Wibley and Austin Sigmund Brocker, which was If I'm Being Honest. And I left this one to the end because when I was reading the premise of the 3 books, this was the one that sounded the least appealing to me. I've also had them sitting on my bookshelf for probably 3 to 4 years, but this one focuses on our main character, Cameron. They're in high school again. She's essentially a bitch and nobody likes her because she speaks her mind and she's honest, brutally honest, and not in a way that people like. And basically she has had a crush on her best friend, and he basically makes the soccer team, so she makes a move on him because she ends up being a bitch in front of the best friend, and he basically turns around and says that he doesn't want to date her. And so she basically embarks on this tour to apologize to everybody that she's wronged, to show him that she's changed and that she is serious about him, etc., etc. And it was so not a good time, and then ends up falling for a different guy anyway and making new friends, which pisses off her best friend who's a bitch anyway. Apparently I rated it 3 stars. I'd probably drop it to 2.5. I didn't enjoy it. And then book 20 was Star Daughter by Shveta Thakra. This is a book that first of all, I've said this before, I think is stunning. It's gorgeous. I was disappointed a little bit by this book. We have our main character, Sheetal. She is half star. Her mum is a star. Her father is a human. Her mum ended up, when she was a child, returning back to the heavens to be with her heavenly family. And Sheetal's about to turn 17, and she started being able to hear a song that is her heavenly family trying to communicate with her. And she ends up burning her father with her star magic. And the only way for her to heal him is through the blood of a full-bodied star. So she ends up ascending to the heavens to meet her heavenly family. And they agree that they will give her their blood to heal her father if she agrees to be their human champion in this competition that they have to enter, because stars basically inspire humans and they have to go and do this like creative competition. And I didn't really enjoy this book. I did rate it 3 stars. I think I'd maintain the 3 stars in all honesty. I just thought that it had so much potential and it just let me down. I wasn't really interested in it. Everything was the build up to the competition, and the competition was a couple chapters. It was pointless. There was a love interest I didn't care about. I just didn't really enjoy it, and bad. So book 21 was Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift. This is part of a duology. I won't be finishing the duology. I really didn't like this book. We focus on our main two characters whose names I can't remember, I'm not gonna find. They're both basically been in a arranged marriage since they were 8 or 9. He's the heir to like the kingdom, but then she's also kind of royalty. There's like another ruling family kind of, but they're in the same kingdom. I don't know, it was weird, I didn't really understand it. But he goes away to academy to train. She can't go because they have a magic system where you get markings on both arms. She only has markings on one arm, so they don't send her to the academy. Instead, she works with his father. There's this like underground criminal organization thing going involved. And for some reason, I think, yeah, let's let the 16-year-old, 17-year-old get involved with the criminal underbelly of our kingdom. She's betrothed to the fucking heir. Like, why is she the one being involved in this? I just really can't get around the idea of 16, 17, 18-year-olds beating up adults in criminal underbellies, okay? It don't make sense, okay? It was cool when I was a teenager, but now as an adult, I'm like, lol, you're tripping. But I did rate this one 3 stars as well, and you know what? It can keep its rating, but I'm not picking up the sequel. And then the last 3 books are all part of a series that I have literally just finished, and they are the reason that this video hasn't gone up any earlier in the year. But it was the Slammed trilogy by Colleen Hoover, which focused on the first novel, Slammed, the sequel, Point of Retreat, and then the 3rd book was This Girl. I rated all of these books at different ratings. So Slammed was 3 stars, Point of Retreat was 2.5 stars, and This Girl I gave 1.5 stars. We focus on our main characters, Laken and Will. Laken's family ends up moving to this small town where Will already lives. Will's parents died a couple years earlier. He is the sole caretaker of his 9-year-old brother. Will is also 21 and a teaching assistant, or a teacher, student teacher. Laken's family moves to this small town because her father's just passed away. She's still in high school, ends up going on a date with Will and then discovering that he's her teacher, and I freaking hated that plot. I thought it was horrible. It was so gross. I couldn't stand it. Then this is the sequel, which is told entirely from Will's point of view. So this was Laken's point of view. That's why I liked it more. It was bearable. This is Will's point of view. I didn't like Will as a male main character. The toxic masculinity in this book was disgusting. I couldn't stand it. I had a bad time with it. I skim read a lot of it. It was unnecessary. This book, This Girl, was a waste of freaking time. I was reading reviews of it and I'm going, surely no, like surely this isn't the premise. This book is literally this book from Will's point of view. So something happens at the end of the 2nd book that I'm not going to say because it's a spoiler. And in this book, it's him and Laken just sitting down, having a good old chat about the events of this book from his point of view because she wants his opinion. And I skim read and skipped so much of this book. This is the book I'm talking about because it was unnecessary. It was pointless. It was a waste of time. I didn't need to read it. It was 285 pages of unnecessary information. Literally just read the epilogue. That's all you need. That's all you need. But they were books 22, 23, and 24. The final ones I needed to read. And you know what? The last Colleen Hoover novels I ever want to pick up. Unless it's a reread of Verity. But I don't hate myself that much to do it. Okay guys, so they are all 24 books. I'm really worried that this stack is just gonna... Yep, there we go. Anyway, what was I saying? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. They are a very brief summary of my thoughts and feelings on the 24 books I read in 2024. If you would like to know my more in-depth thoughts, please just let me know which books it is because I'm more than happy to go back and find what month I read them in and let you know which reading wrap-up you need to watch. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and I will see you next week for another one. Bye, guys.